How you doing, everybody? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and I have a really special show to you today. And what we want to talk about is, will you survive the new Atlanta or will you get pushed out? And this is going to be a good show for a person that wants to kind of understand where is the direction and where are the kind of some of the trends that we're seeing in the city of Atlanta. Where do we think that they're going? And how can you position yourself to either be successful or maybe figure out if you're living inside the city of Atlanta, maybe you need to try to figure out a new plan for yourself, kind of based on where we're going with the city. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is because Atlanta is a city that gets a lot of publicity, gets a lot of attention, gets a lot of notoriety. But a lot of times people don't really understand the real situation on the ground. And oftentimes they may show up in the city and find that they're unprepared for what it's going to take to actually be successful inside an environment. So I decided to bring on L. Clark, who's a Georgia realtor. She's been doing this for around 17 years, and she has a lot of really, really good understanding of perspectives of what is actually going on in the city from an economic standpoint, a social standpoint, maybe even from a social, economic, political standpoint. And she can give you a lot of really, really good feedback based on her perspective of where she thinks this particular city is going. And if you have any questions and you want to reach out to her, anything business related, she can be reached at L. Clark at L. Clark Solutions. That's pretty much all her social media contacts. So, Ms. Clark, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate having you on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very busy person.
I always have time for great people.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So we've heard a lot of information, a lot of news about Atlanta. And some of the things that you've been able to kind of hit me to is that there's a lot of major trends going on in the city that you think can impact people that are not only living in the city, but people maybe that are thinking about moving to the city in the near future. What are some of the major trends you have observed in the city of Atlanta?
A lot of the trends, here's what's weird about the trends. The trends did not just start. We're just now starting to see them take effect. But if you paid attention to the city, I always tell people, take time and drive around your city and look at infrastructure and see how things are changing. And if you back up to about maybe 5 years ago, you will see the city was starting to change where a lot of things in the city of Atlanta was being pushed out into the suburban areas. And so a lot of people thought, I'm going to go out into the suburban areas. But now when you come into the city, things, when we look at houses today in Atlanta, we think about single family homes. Well, condos and townhomes are the things now. And not just in the city, even on the outskirts of the city. So where they were once pushing people out of the city into the suburban areas, now even the people in the suburban areas are going to get pushed out even further, probably even out of the state, depending on price point and where you are. So it's interesting that you call this the new Atlanta, because that's exactly what it is. It's not the old Atlanta where you can come here and get $900 rent and 200,000 brand new homes. It's not that Atlanta anymore. We're far gone from that.
Okay, and I'm really glad you answered that question. And I want to ask you some follow-up. So when I moved to Atlanta, the first time I moved there was around 2012.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed is that I was living in the Smyrna area, but we call it Atlanta Metro.
Yes.
And I was living relatively close to 285. And one thing I noticed is that along that Atlanta Avenue area, that Cobb Parkway, South Cobb, a lot of the newer construction probably have been built maybe in the last 10 to 15 years were townhomes.
Yes.
But when I looked at a lot of the older homes in Smyrna, they were the single family homes.
Mm-hmm.
Why have we seen, because I'm from Florida, I'm from Orlando, Florida. It's not a really townhome type city. Why do we think in Atlanta, especially with a lot of the newer construction, the builders have gone to this townhome model as opposed to the single family home model that you normally see in the South?
Very good question. And I lived in Smyrna also.
Okay.
I actually lived in Smyrna for about 10 years. But the reason why is because we have land here, and it's not about quality anymore of space, single family acreage. It's about quantity. So they can get more people into the city with a condo development or a townhome development versus a community that's more single family home. That's one. Two, the people that are buying, we have a lot of millennials out. You have baby boomers who are downsizing, but it's more so about quantity of more people coming in, and they're expecting an influx of people coming into the city. So you can get that more in condos and townhomes.
Okay, so what you're saying is they're able to put more people in a smaller area with the townhomes and the condos?
Correct.
Okay, okay. So what do you think is going to happen to the single family homes that are currently there? Are they going to get raised and put townhomes there, or are they going to just keep them there?
No, single family homes are going to stay around.
Okay.
Price points are going to be astronomical. Like right now, if we look at Smyrna, I can tell you the average single family, I don't care if it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath built in 1970, it's not under 450,000. You know, condos right now, if you find one in Smyrna for 350, that's a steal. You know, so even those are expensive, but single family homes are going to stay around. New builders are even building single family homes. They're just building them further out from the city. So if you go into areas like Winder, Bethlehem, certain areas of Cobb County like Powder Springs, but they're so small. They're very small. They're very cookie cutter. So they're giving you some single family options, just not what we used to have in terms of single family homes.
Okay. And so you saying that they're going to probably be moving, the people on the outskirts will probably have to move even farther out. So let me ask you, why do you think there's this desire to want to continue to move in the metro areas of the city, even though the cost is still going up?
Well, it's all about who.
Okay.
Because it's going to be based on who can afford. Like Atlanta is becoming a city, or Georgia altogether is becoming a state of truly have and have nots. I'm gonna just keep it real with you. So after a while, the middle class will be knocked out completely. They're going to get pushed down to low income, and you either going to have it or you're not going to have it. So when you come into the city, even people who live in this, who live in the city now, they're going to get pushed out of the city if they're not making more money, because everything is going up, but it's not primarily starting with housing, though. It's starting with other economic things first, and it bleeds over into housing.
Okay. And so going into that and some of the things we talked about with housing, but what are these particular housing trends? How do you think they're going to impact the current residents of the city, but not only the city part, but also the metro?
Well, it's sad because you have people who've lived here probably all of their lives, people who moved here, have pretty good jobs, and they were probably looking for a home ownership. They probably was renting for a while, and now this was in the last year or two, they were looking to buy. But what has happened is in the last 2 years, we have acquisition companies that have come in. And so when sellers put their homes on the market that was in between that 200 and 300 price point, that was the price point for a lot of people who currently live in Atlanta, the Atlanta area and surrounding areas, to be able to purchase and still afford a home. But what sellers did in the last year and a half, between them and persuasion by their agent, they took those cash offers from those acquisition companies. And so the acquisition companies, they actually write in their contracts, this home is going to become a rental. They're not going to resell it. So instead of the seller saying, let me sell this house to a family that's going to live here and take the market that way, they sell the houses to acquisition companies who are going to put it up for rent. So most of the people who could afford in that price point that lived here, that's where they're going to have to go to the same houses that they once made offers on. They're going to have to rent those houses. Between that and going even further out of the city, further south, further east, which means that'll be a larger commute for them to get to work, more money that they'll spend outside the home, but they're still going to spend astronomical amounts in rent. So it's very sad for people who have always lived here, or they've been here for a while and they were looking for to get into home ownership, and they've been boxed out because of this last trend in the last year and a half with the acquisition companies, the cash offers coming in, taking over those properties. And unfortunately, some people are probably going to leave Georgia.
Okay. And let me ask you real quick, because I was talking about, the people on my channel, we really look at the markets a lot. And there's a particular company, we don't want to say their name, but they're a larger rental acquisition company. So they acquire a lot of homes, single family homes, and they rent them out. We're talking about the stock price.
Mm-hmm.
Why has currently, let's say over the past 3 to 4 years, just based on your own analysis, I know this is not investment advice, why do you think these companies have started looking for real estate as an asset or an asset class to start acquiring just because they want to rent them out?
Well, not only is it real estate, it's where they're purchasing it at.
Okay.
So even though a lot of states have experienced those companies coming in, you have to follow the money.
Okay.
And so Georgia is a place where the money has come and is coming.
Yeah.
So those acquisition companies, how can I make an investment? Let's control the market. Companies, your Googles, your Amazons, all those have taken over that space. But real estate, it was the way to control that because this is where the money is and it's going to be for a while.
Okay. So let's say I'm somebody that is thinking about moving to the Atlanta metro area. How are these particular trends impacting me? Because I may not be aware of it, but I'm thinking, okay, I can go to Atlanta. I've heard all the news. I heard all the hype. What should I be looking to expect once I land in the city?
Well, one, to anybody that's watching that is not in Georgia yet, if you do plan to come here, do get serious financial analysis on what it really costs to live here, the cost of living first. But once you come here, the only thing you can do to prepare yourself is have good credit, because you're gonna need that for everything. But you're gonna need some liquid. You're gonna need some cash here. We are in a place where you gotta pay to play. Period. You gotta pay to play here. There is no more fake it till you make it in Atlanta, or you will get kicked out very quickly. So this is the perfect time, to make more money. You got to figure out how to make more money. Otherwise, you'll go back. There's no gray area anymore. That's sad. Like there was a gray area where you can come here, kind of hang in a pocket area of the city, until you got certain things together. Then you can move to a little better. But even the pocket areas of the city are just seriously expensive now. So you have to come here, right? Or you'll be gone very quickly.
Yeah, that is something that I think a lot of people are starting to realize. Atlanta was a big, I don't know what you want to call it, fake it till you make it, but it was very much based on the perception as opposed to the reality. And I think that's over for a lot of people. And I think they may be late to it. The biggest question we want to ask is that, what do we think is the cause of some of these changes in the city? Do we think it's going to be government policy? Somebody commented on our post, it was a particular political party. I don't necessarily know if that's true, but do we think it's government policy cause these changes, lack of government policy, or just demographic changes?
It's a combination of things. I always believe in balance.
Okay.
But the one thing that it is that we don't know is, there's always an agenda, and so you can follow that trail, but there's always an agenda. I definitely think government policies, when you look at politics right now and everybody we have in office here, which is crazy, that is a part of it. Demographic change, absolutely. We have, because of the corporations that we have here now, again, follow the money. And you have to think about where these people are coming. Coast, they're coming from New York. So the demographics is changing. The socioeconomic status is changing. And so this city doesn't want to be embarrassed. They want to be able to fit the occasion. So they're leveling up in so many ways so that they can oblige to the people that are coming here. And those are the people that they're trying to impress, because those are the people that's going to keep the city thriving.
Okay.
So it's a combination of things between demographic change is definitely what we want, what they want, as well as government policies. But those things kind of tie in together because they tend to control the governmental side too. So.
Okay. Now, why do you think, and this is a question that kind of relates to, let's say, the past few years, but even maybe since like the mid-90s, why is Atlanta a city to where everybody, for some reason, wants to keep coming to the city? What about this city makes it so attractive and has made it so attractive for a long period of time?
Well, Atlanta, I feel like, I remember I moved here in 2003,
Okay.
4, somewhere about there. And I just felt like when I came here, when I looked at certain places I wanted to move to, I was leaving Ohio. I had finished school there and I was going. I didn't know if I wanted to go to Texas, if I wanted to go to DC, if I wanted to go to Chicago, or come to Atlanta where family was. But when I came here, it's a place, especially for African Americans, where we are easily accepted. It's easy to move here. It's easy to slide into the city. And honestly, people not even know that you're here. But it's a place where people can come, start any business. You're probably going to be supported. There's going to be a pocket for you. There's going to be a community for you. So it's just a very open place. It's not a hard place to be. So I think that's the thing about it, is it's kind of like you got your Southern hospitality with a DC vibe, if you will. You kind of put those together. So it's like I got a job pretty quickly here, because it's something about people when they come here real new, they get jobs real quick, all over the city. So that's the thing about it. And then when you look at TV, the media, those are the things that drive people here too. Again, it's where the money is at. So the film industry is here. Artists are here. The nightlife is here. The parties are here. The clubs are here. Hey, I think I'm going to go down to Atlanta. They seem like they're doing it down there. And that's what brings people here. But I don't think people realize the work they have to put in to truly stay here. That's the downside, because life is about to happen. Like, people keep saying, we're going to go through a recession. We're actually already in one. We're not in the eye of the storm of it yet.
Yeah.
And when we hit that part, those people who moved here without a real plan are going to get thrown out.
Okay. So let me ask you another question based on that, because we know that, and we talked about Atlanta being a city where if you have business aspirations or you want to be really financially successful. But one thing we notice about Atlanta is, unfortunately, it attracts a lot of people that don't really have a really valuable skill set. They may not have a lot of education. They may not be able to demand some of those higher paying jobs. Why do we think they're so attracted to Atlanta, even though they're maybe not necessarily set up to be successful?
Well, they're attracted to the falsehood of the city. So I look at Atlanta like this. You have this beautiful place where so many things are happening, but then there's like this little layer of like haze over it. I think people come here and all they see is the haze. They see, I can come here and it's all about party, club, brunch. Those are not things that's gonna, help you to survive and really grow here. You're not thriving. I think it's that halo over Atlanta that people get into, and a lot of people get stuck there. A lot of people get lost there. And some people be like, oh, this might be too much. I didn't have my reality check. I got to go get a real job. I got to go get some real formal education and things like that. So that's the difference. I think it's that little halo that sits over the city where people and I think it takes people somewhere between about 6 months to a year to get through it, to realize like, okay, wait, these bills are kicking in. This job ain't working. I got to go do some extra. And they don't want to leave because they don't want to leave that limelight experience. So then they try to say, okay, let me go do some real work so I can really stay here.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because when I was really, really young, I remember the two cities that you would go to try to make it, this before the internet, was New York, LA.
Yes.
But a lot of people went there and they washed out. So the washout rate in those cities was really, really high. And then something happened like in the 90s where the city to go to became Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And you kind of experienced that same thing. Both those cities were known for very, really high standing of living, very expensive to live in. A lot of people go there and they wouldn't necessarily find what they was looking for. And we're seeing that a lot in Atlanta, even though it's not as big. The question I want to ask you is, based on kind of where these trends are going, do you think there'll be a place in Atlanta, city-wise, but also metro, for people that are making at 50 or under 50K a year?
No. Unfortunately, that's the working class, that's the hardest working class right there. They get up every day, they bust their 9 to 5, they're trying to take care of their kids. But unfortunately, they make too much money for government assistance, or housing assistance. Unfortunately, those are the people who are going to have to do one or two things. They're going to be so far removed from what this new Atlanta looks like, or they're going to say, you know what, I think my time in Georgia is over. They may have to start looking at work from home jobs in other states that have a better amount in terms of what I'm paying per month for all of my bills and things like that. Like cost of living is going to have to be less, but they may have to work from home in other states. But I think for those people, it's sad because there is no place. I have people in that price point who are approved for properties in between that 250 to 300 price range. We've probably been looking at houses since last year for sure. And some of them just say, you know what, I'm just tired. I'm going to just go stay with somebody, or I'm going to just consider moving. And that is what it's going to come to. And I just hope people who are in that area make that decision before it's too late. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I want people to know. Like, do not sit back right now and just watch and wait. This is the time to start getting your affairs in order, scaling down what you need to scale down, especially if you're not in those high price point jobs. If you don't have, investments or any type of liquidity like that, you are the ones who definitely got to say, I got to come up with a plan. Either we about to go room together, 3 or 4 of us or something, or I have to start looking around other places outside of Georgia that I may have to move to.
Okay. And so let me ask you, because one of the things we notice, and even in cities where people make a lot of money, especially a big city like Atlanta, we need a group of people that are doing sometimes service-oriented jobs, unskilled, semi-skilled jobs to be able to support the city. Mm-hmm. Where are those kind of people going to live? So let's say we look at the medical profession in Atlanta, the big medical facilities. We're going to need people like CNAs. Mm-hmm. Where would those people live in the city as the cost of living continues to go higher and higher?
They're going to live further out again. And what's going to happen is you're going to find those individuals. Let's say if those primary jobs are in. So you mentioned medical. What was the other industry you mentioned?
Like semi-skilled, unskilled. So we got people like that work at Hartsfield.
Okay. So let's say airport, let's say medical. So people who are Sandy Springs, Roswell, Alpharetta is where the job is.
Okay.
But where they're going to have to live is probably going to be McDonough. Mm. Where they're going to have to live is going to be Winder, Bethlehem, okay. Loganville, far out, Walton County side, not the Gwinnett County side. And so what's going to happen is those people still have a job, but they're spending more money on transportation. They're spending more money on gas. They're spending more money on food. They're spending more money driving to and from work. And they're probably going to be spending more money on healthcare because they'll be sick. And that's typically what happens with individuals in that annual salary of that 30, 40, 50,000. They have to sacrifice more to get to the paycheck and get to the job. The people who make the most, they make their money from home or sleep. The people who make the least, they got to get up and grind times 10 to get it. And so that means they're going to have to move further out, and it's going to be more of a strain for them to get there. But it's like, this is all I got, so this is what I got to do.
Okay. And looking at the city, the actual metro of Atlanta, so I call it inside the perimeter.
Okay.
Do you really believe that they're going to just continue to gentrify till we get all the lower income people out of the city, and essentially like everything inside the perimeter? If you're not making like $100,000 a year, you're not going to be able to stay there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So even though builders get these contracts and developers get these contracts, and a part of their contracts, it says, you should have 10%, 15% affordable housing. And we all know how that part works. But that number is never enough to help the people who already live there. So absolutely, if you're inside of 285 for rent, at a 1 or 2 bedroom, you're going to be looking at $2,500 to $2,800 for rent. Mm. If you're looking to buy, unless you're finding something super old, very, very old condo building, you may find something $200-300, but across the board, you need to be in that $450, $550 plus price point. And if it's something that's brand new, you need to be over $500. no matter what it is, a condo, a townhome, or a single family. But to be inside the perimeter, it's going to be expensive to go across the street to, the nice shops and the eateries and the stores. And you're going to have to pay to play.
Okay. Now, knowing that this is kind of where they're going, now we've always known, I would say, let me speak for myself. I've always known Atlanta as being like a city with a good amount of Black people inside the city. That was kind of like their marketing.
Of course.
Now, as we start to move the price points up for everything, do we think that, let's say 5 to 10 years, that Black presence inside the actual city of Atlanta, but especially inside the perimeter, is going to be gone and replaced by another group of people?
Ask the question again. You kind of went out after 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so let's see. We see that the requirements for having higher income, more pay, is starting to go up actually inside the perimeter. So let's say the next 5 to 10 years, do we think that a lot of the Black population of Atlanta will just no longer exist inside the city anymore?
I'm not going to say no longer exists. I'm going to say the percentage is going to be less. Now, one thing about Black people, now, we're some very viable people. We're going to do what we have to do to get what we want, but it's going to be a different class of African Americans who live inside the city. You're going to have to really be able to afford to live there. That's what it's going to come down to. So I just think the percentage amount is going to go down, but you will see, you'll see some specks here and there.
Okay, so you see it as maybe being a majority, because I think right now it's a little bit under 50% population. So, when you're in the city, you do see a lot of Black people. You also see a lot of Black people like in the areas. But do we think it's going to turn into a scenario to where you're going to go into Atlanta, especially inside the perimeter, and you're just not going to really see a lot of Black people?
Well, they're going to be there, but you're going to see more of other races. That's going to be the thing. So you're going to see more Indian, Asians, Vietnamese, Chinese. Definitely that multicultural area. You're going to see more of those races coming into the city. Black people will be there, but it's just going to be, it's going to look like our numbers have decreased drastically because of so many of the other races that have come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with all this going on, how come nobody's really kind of talking about these demographic changes, these economic changes? While they're going on, the conversation isn't really about that and how it's going to really impact the people inside the city of Atlanta.
Because by the time they get ready to talk about it, it's going to be too late.
Okay.
And for the people that they truly want it to affect, those are the ones that their backs are going to be up against the wall to where they have to go do this over here. So it's like, when I don't give you forewarning of something, if I give you forewarning, we talk about it in advance, it means you have some time to plan, etc. But they're not talking about it because once it happens and we're there, it's like, this is where we are. You got to go. You got to do A or B. And that's what it's the real conversation should be about that they're not having. Okay.
So let me ask you this kind of question. It may sound a little random, but let's say I'm looking at the Atlanta area inside the perimeter, an area where the housing prices are still not really crazy yet. So let's say like maybe East Point, College Park. Let's say some of the areas still like a little bit under 20. Should I look there, even though the houses really are not new, they're not in the best areas, they haven't really been gentrified yet, with the hope of getting in early? Or should I just disregard those because the change and the transition has not moved there yet?
No, well, one, if you don't want to be homeless, yes, you should look there. If you don't, like, this is becoming a thing where, do you want to live under the bridge on 20 or do you want to live in a house under 20? Which one you want to do? Yes, but I definitely would say this is the time to get into those areas, because what you can still find from a selling perspective, homes under 350 in those areas that are nice, move-in ready, things like that, may not be the best, manicured area when you go outside, may not be the best school district. But if you don't jump on those properties, someone else will sooner. Yes, and when they jump on them sooner, because what you see now, you see the type of houses changing. So it's not even, if you are familiar with, say, I'm gonna give you Camp Creek, that has more of your traditional style homes, 2-story, brick and frame, nice neighborhood. Those houses aren't even the houses that they're tearing down stuff and building in, like, I'm going to say, the hood areas or the areas below 20. They're coming in and building, more contemporary type homes that you'll see in California, Seattle, places like that. So when you start coming in and you see 2 or 3 of those on the street where it's a Family Dollar on the corner, you got to look and say, wait a minute, something's going on here. But most people look at them and be like, oh my God, somebody's crazy. They put this nice house on this corner with all these raggedy houses. They ain't crazy.
Yeah.
So absolutely, if you don't want to be homeless and you can sacrifice for a little to sacrifice, but if you can sacrifice for a little bit, go south of 20, go to Southwest Atlanta, certain portions of Southeast Atlanta, get those properties, live and sit.
Okay. Hey, and I noticed that because when I was living there, I was in Old Fourth Ward.
Okay.
Going north from Moreland towards Ponce de Leon. And they had townhomes out there going for like $800,000 with like no yard, just a driveway. And I don't know what the back of the townhome looked like. And they was going for $800,000. They was getting that $800,000 out of that. And this was like literally 2014, maybe 2015. And so that's when I kind of realized that this area was changing. Also, when I was in Edgewood, I saw like a totally different demographic in Edgewood. And so I realized, like, okay, things are starting to change, but nobody's really talking about it. So let's say we understand what the problem is, and we kind of talked about some of the things that people should look to do. So what do you think could be a solution to some of the challenges that we discussed today?
Solution one is having more of these conversations.
Okay.
Amongst the masses, because we have to be informed. That will help. Two, again, I think what is truly going on is so beyond most of us.
Yes, ma'am.
That we can't really, grab it and get a hold of it the way to control it the way we think we could. We're so far away from it. But what you can do is say, okay, how can I hone in on my little space and what can I do? And it's gonna how strong you are as a candidate. So my biggest advice to everybody is to work on self. Let's not really be focused on what they're really talking about, because what they're talking about and what you need to be listening to is they're not telling you what you really need to talk about, what they really need to be talking about. So in this market, in this city, it's preparation. Okay. Right now is the time to prepare. It's the time to, like I said earlier, scale down big ticket items. Unless it's income producing, don't purchase it. If you have certain things that are assets, you might want to figure out how you can get some cash flow out of it. Making sure credit and liquid funds is somewhere safe. And if you're looking for a residence to say, and you're not trying to rent, again, you might have to tap down those standards for a little bit and say, hey, and look at the overall investment, because that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the overall investment. Yes, we want the immediate fix. We want it to immediately, like, boom, it looked like this. It's nice. It's in Buckhead. It's in Roswell, blah, blah, blah. No, you might have to go to College Park. You might have to go to Riverdale for a few minutes. You might have to go to Jonesboro. And that's okay, or whatever, because at the end of the day, what matters is your quality of life. And so you can create a good quality of life there, and you hold on and wait it out, because when this thing really hits, it's not going to be from a housing market. It's going to be from the economic side of things.
Yes, ma'am.
That's where it's really going to hit your pockets at. And so I would rather come home to my house in East Point or College Park or wherever, where I still know that the lights are on, the water is on, the refrigerator is full, and I'm not stressing on how I'm going to get that, because the stuff is expensive out here. So we got to kind of change our priorities right now or whatever in order to survive this thing. unfortunately for us, as a cultural perspective, we're kind of behind on that side too, because other cultures tend to work together. We're more so singular individual. We kind of miss the mark on family values. So when it comes to these type of economic issues, it's better to go through them with your family unit. So people laugh at the Hispanics and Latinos for 6, 7, 8 people living in a house, or the Asian community who can build brands and, buy real estate all over the place and own every shopping center, or even Caucasian families who know, let me get my wife, let me get my kids, let's have this generational wealth. We're singled out. We're individuals out here trying to take on this big tornado when we could take it on a lot better together. So that too is another issue within our community that makes us kind of get behind the mark, is we're doing everything by ourselves when we could be doing it much better and stronger in units. But I think right now everybody needs to prepare. Look at your finances. The brunches on the weekend might have to chill out on some of those a little bit. The expensive things. Do I really need this expensive car right now? Those are the things we got to scale down on and look at real investments. You might need to go on the other side of town for a little bit, stack that money. So when we come on the other side of this, you're still standing financially. You don't want to be, destitute, in debt and everything else after the new Atlanta has truly arrived.
Okay, and want to ask you a question based on what you talked about. And something we talk about here a lot is people thinking they have to do everything by themselves, and how that kind of impacts their ability to move financially, impacts their ability to build wealth. Do we think there's any solution to that problem? Because one of the things, you're 100% correct, if you observe it, is other ethnic groups believe in the power of their group. And one of the things that some reason we have been kind of persuaded is that our power is in the individual, which is very American, and I get it. We've kind of bought into that American mythology about the individual. But in this economic world that we're going into, how do we deal with it as an individual when you're going to be competing against groups of people?
You can't, unless you're already strong. unless you are an individual to where all of your ducks are in a row, all I's are dotted, T's are crossing, you're just that strong individual. Yes, you will make it. But there's power in numbers, period, that just don't change. And so the fact that we do everything individually, we bought into the American thing of, solo thinking, but that really wasn't what I think they really was trying to tell us. I think that was a trick. I think that was a trick. So we have, amongst us, there's control issues. There's, I want to do it my way issues. I have my own vision issues. We have so many self issues. That's more the reason why we can't come together like this and make things work. For me personally, I couldn't care less. If I came up with the idea, my name don't have to be on the building. You can put me in the back. Let's just push the movement forward. But we don't have that in enough numbers to allow us to move the needle the right way. So that is going to be another issue in this economic trend. Individuals not coming together when we could have came together some years ago and collaborated, whether it was individuals in business, whether it was even creating a family to say, let's hold strong. But we're so into, again, that haze, while everybody else is behind the haze, building the real structure. We are more so focused into the haze of things, and that's where we get lost at. And as an individual, you'll be lost there too.
Okay, and I really appreciate you talking about the College Park, East Point area, Riverdale, Jonesboro. I know about these particular areas. A lot of people don't want to go down there, but that may be where the majority of the opportunities at right now in Atlanta. Because I know from living there, a lot of the stuff on the north side. I lived in Smyrna. I had no idea what Smyrna was going to turn into. I would have bought property there. When I was living there, I had no idea this is going to be the hot place to live. And then I remember when they put the stadium there, I still didn't get it.
Yes.
And then about 2018, 2019, everything just started going like that. And I said, I can't believe it, because there was nearly nothing going on when I was living there. It was like a cottage town.
Yes.
It was real slow, real laid back, but for some reason, everybody ran over there. And so you're 100% correct. I think that College Park, East Point area. I think that Hateville area. I want to get back over there, start looking at Pittsburgh, Summer Hill. I think those areas are going to be really hot because there's not a lot of room left for people to move into, and also seeing what they've done with the Beltline. So I really want to encourage people to look at the areas that they may have thought weren't maybe the best areas, and like you talked about, get in there and just hang on, because as things change, at least you have that foundation up under you.
You're absolutely right. And see, the thing is about those areas you're mentioning,
yes, ma'am.
See, they're not left out. People think, oh, they just left those out or looked those over. No, they haven't. They got those places in line too.
Yes, ma'am.
Because even when it comes to people that move in here, everybody isn't going to want to live directly in the city.
Yes, ma'am.
So they have to go down and beautify those areas too. It's getting there. Like, you literally, it cracks me up that you mentioned Edgewood, that you can drive down certain portions of Edgewood, Auburn Avenue. It's like gutter, you know.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you see white people running
Exactly.
and dogs running
Exactly.
and parks out the blue. You're like, wait,
Yeah.
am I still on Edgewood?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
when you see that, that lets you know, okay, it's something going on here. So going into those areas that you mentioned, it would behoove us to seek some type of residential space there.
Yeah, you and I didn't want to say white people because I didn't know if you feel comfortable, because I remember me getting off. Okay, I didn't know. You know, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable on my show. So,
I'm black.
Yeah, so I was getting off. I don't know where. I think I got off 20 to go to Kirkwood, and I got off to go to Kirkwood, and I see some white dude like walking some little like poodle. And I remember like they wouldn't be caught dead in Kirkwood the same way in Edgewood. When I started going to Edgewood early 2000s, like if they didn't know you over there, it turned to a whole different type of situation. And we see these people out just jogging, got the Lululemon leggings on, they doing their thing. And so this area has changed. But one of the things that we bought into was that, okay, I made a certain amount of money. I need to move way, way, way out. And then I still don't value these areas. And I think if we figured out how to balance that, yeah, you may want to move out of Duluth, that's cool. But if you can get some investment in these areas, because like you said, they've already had their eye on these areas. I just think they were waiting for the prices to get low enough where they can just come in and start buying everything up.
And that's the thing. We don't have to live everywhere, but owning is the key. So if you can own a property in these areas, make it some type of residual income for you. You know, you can still live in Alpharetta or Duluth or wherever you want to live at, you know, that has the name to it that equals the status for you. Because, you know, that's another thing here. When people say where they live, living in Atlanta is like this. The two first things people ask you after they ask you your name, oh, what do you do? Yeah. Where do you live? Because those equate some type of status. So even if you don't want to say, oh, I live in Pittsburgh, you can still say I live in Alpharetta or Milton. But if you have investment in Pittsburgh, now that what impresses me, you know, and that's what actually helps you to be able to play and have some say so in this market when you own pieces of the land. That's the difference. We want to own all the, you know, the labels and the this and the that, but we don't own none of the stuff that controls the economy.
Okay. Well, I don't want to hold you too long. I really appreciate your feedback, because I know you know your stuff and you're able to give a lot of people a really good understanding of what's going to be necessary for them to be successful. If they're trying to move into Atlanta, how they need to look at it. And we're going to kind of cut this show up in pieces so people can get those really, really major points. So I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your time. If you got any questions about anything going on in the city from a real estate standpoint, Ms. Clark's social media contacts are on the particular page. We're going to put them in the descriptions. I appreciate everybody for coming through. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and I will talk to you later.